You are watching No Filter with Debbie. These are my views and opinions. Welcome to No Filter with Debbie. I'm Debbie Schlussel, and I'm not going to tell you what's driving me crazy today. I'll tell you what's making me sad. I knew the late Rush Limbaugh, who died today at the age of 70 from lung cancer. We were friends actually for many years. I first was introduced to him not by meeting him. He read some of my articles on his show, and I got lots of traffic on my website and other websites where my articles appeared. His brother, David Limbaugh, with whom I also became friends, reached out to me, and we became friends. And eventually, I actually did hear from Rush Limbaugh. One day he emailed me. Now, why did he email me? Well, he badly, desperately wanted to host Monday Night Football, and he could not get arrested in the eyes of the producers and the director of that show, who were friends of mine. I wrote an article about it. I wrote an article about how I thought he'd be great for Monday Night Football to join that booth. And in those days, Frank Gifford was still alive. He was in that booth. A lot of the older names who aren't there anymore. But he desperately wanted that. And I wrote an article online how I thought he would be great for that. And that was after he had already read some of my articles on the air, featured some of my writings and some of my insights. And I wrote this article. He read it on the air repeatedly, and he reached out to me. And I actually sent the article to my friends who were, again, producers and a director of Monday Night Football, the director of Monday Night Football. They took a second look, and he got the audition that they had originally turned him down for. Now, he did not end up in the booth at Monday Night Football. Unfortunately, they picked Dennis Miller, and he didn't last too long either because he was terrible. Nobody cares about his humor, which isn't funny, which he spends 10 years each day looking up things in an encyclopedia that nobody gets. Nobody cared about that. They want to watch football. And if you're going to give insights about football, great. Nobody wanted to hear what Dennis Miller had to say. But anyway, Rush Limbaugh did not become a Monday Night Football commentator. He did, however, get a gig at ESPN. And that didn't last very long. And we'll get into that in a minute or two. But first, I want to tell you about Rush Limbaugh. Yes, he was my friend. He did a lot of things that I thought were crappy to me. Humans aren't perfect. You know what? We all are imperfect. But overall, he was a great American and a proud patriot, and we're all better off that he existed than had he never graced the face of the earth. He did a lot of great things for this country. I'll tell you something. There would be no conservative media were it not for Rush Limbaugh. There wouldn't be a Fox News, or if there were, it would be decades later. There would never be, and I'm talking about the original Fox News when it used to be semi conservative. Now, I don't know what it is. They don't know what they are. Rush Limbaugh, without him, President Trump would never, never have been elected. And he would have never gotten 74 million voters the next time around. He just would not have. The police and our brave military men and women would never have gotten a voice in the media. He was their voice. He cared about them. He respected them. Mainstream Americans like the good, hardworking, largely working class people of North Dakota and other states would never have had a voice. He spoke for them. Even though he was a multimillionaire, he really understood the little guy in America, just like President Trump did. He understood, he knew what it was like growing up in his class. His family was middle class. His father was a lawyer, but he understood what it was like growing up in the heartland of America. In his case, it was Cape Girardeau, Missouri. In other people's case, it would be somewhere in the middle of North Dakota, maybe Dickinson, maybe somewhere else, maybe Jamestown. But he understood what that life was like. He was not an elitist. And Rush and I met in person when he came to Detroit once. We met up for breakfast. We talked for a couple of hours. I did most of the talking. That is one of the things about Rush Limbaugh that you probably would be surprised by. Some people that are on the air, you expect them to be the same off the air. They're always on when they're on the air. And then they're always on when they're off the air. But that's not the case with a lot of people. And he's one of those people with which that wasn't the case. He was actually very shy and unassuming. I had to make most of the conversation. He didn't have a lot to say. He tried more to listen to people than to talk to them. And I think that's what was one of his great gifts. He listened to his audience, and he was definitely in tune with the pulse of his audience, which was the largest in America on a daily basis. And not only was it the largest by far, but it was also the most, I think, average, the average American. It was most representative of the average American. So he was in touch with the average American. And I'll tell you something, this guy, he may not have had a college degree. He only graduated from high school. He was a college dropout. I think he started college and he left not even he did not even complete a year. That's fine. College wasn't for him. It isn't for everybody. I know plenty of people who have several graduate degrees like I do, who are not that smart, who would not even be good enough to shine his shoes. He was bright, brilliant, intelligent. He had great insights and observations into what was going on, not just in America, but around the world. And it wasn't just in politics, it was in pop culture, which we know is a barometer for the future of where our culture, our actual culture, is going, where our actual country is going politically. And he just was ahead of his time. And he also was behind his time too, because he was a relic of AM radio. And he actually saved radio. Radio would be finished right now if it weren't for him. Radio was a dying breed, but he saved all these AM stations. What he did was he offered his show for free to hundreds of stations dotting the country. At one time, I think he had something like 1,200 stations or 2,000 stations. He had a lot. Now he only has like 600 only. It's still a lot. There are very few hosts who have his number of stations. There are none that had the size of his audience. But aside from what he did on his show, as far as politics goes, he had a sense of humor. He was a showman. A lot of the things that he did on his show were shtick, as we call it. Shtick, the Yiddish word for put upon. It's comedy, it's drama, it's fake. It's not real. He would joke. He joked about Mike Tyson. He stopped doing that because he was accused of being racist. He joked about liberals a lot. He had fake ads on his show. He had parodies that he had others make for him that he put on the show. It was an entertainment product. He always would say, I'm not into politics, I'm an entertainer. And he managed to entertain people for 3 hours, 5 days a week, without a lot of callers and without any guests. Yes, occasionally, once or twice in a blue moon, he would have President Trump on or some other famous politician like that, but very rare. Very rare that he did that. He almost never had guests. And he had all these balls being juggled in the air for 3 hours every day, and he managed to keep it interesting and entertaining. He also did something that was different from most people in the age of podcasts and satellite radio. He did not have a podcast. A lot of radio show hosts do that. They put their shows in podcast form. He also did not let his show appear on Sirius XM, satellite radio. Most other conservative radio hosts on terrestrial radio did that. He was very protective of his product. And when we come back, I'll give a little bit more insight into the Rush Limbaugh that I knew, some of my personal interactions with him, some which were kind of odd, and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So before the break, we were talking about the death today at age 70 of Rush Limbaugh. May he rest in peace. And I was telling you not only about my opinion of him from afar, but also I knew him personally. We would email many times. He called me the day that he found out that he was going deaf and he was going to announce it on his show, which he did do. That morning, he called me to let me know that he was going deaf and that he was going to announce it on his show, that I shouldn't tell anybody, that he wanted people to just hear it naturally if they happen to be listening. He didn't want the media to be listening on purpose. That's the kind of guy he was. He didn't really want people to pre-plan for what he was going to say. He wanted to surprise them. Now, he would email me into the middle of the night and the early morning and tell me a lot of things that were right, stuff that I would never disclose. But you know what? One time, he got upset in the middle of his show at an email I sent him, and he read it on the air. And I got kind of offended by that because I felt our email conversations were private, and he violated those boundaries. Those should have been the boundaries. I did not violate those boundaries, but I can tell you he was emailing me into the middle of the night when he was married to wife number 3, Marta. And we stayed in touch over the years until I stopped because I felt like he was using a lot of my material from my websites, sometimes passing it off, more often than not actually passing it off as his own words. He would say I always give credit, but in my own experience, I found he gave me credit maybe 1 in every 30 to 50 times. Now, there were a lot of times I would email him and send him lines that he should use on his show, and I never asked for credit for those. Hundreds of times he used my lines well over, I think, at least 200 times. I sent him a lot of stuff. We were in touch a lot. I would inform him about a lot of things. I would often correct him. He would always say, I'm 99.9% right, and so on. Well, a lot of times he was wrong. Not that much. I shouldn't say a lot, but he was sometimes wrong. One time he pronounced the word quinoa, and I sent him the pronunciation. I said, Rush, you're really bragging all the time about how you pronounce things correctly. It's quinoa. And he corrected himself quickly. And there were other such instances. I can remember them, but I don't want to dwell on it because that's really not what he was about. What he really was about was a great American. You cannot overstate his effect, a positive one, on American politics and America as a country over the last 3 decades. For more than 3 decades, he was on the air. His show spanned 6 presidencies. And over that time, he influenced not just Republican and conservative presidents, but also Democrats. You'll remember Bill Clinton complained that there was Rush Limbaugh 3 hours a day, every day, and that it was interfering with his presidency. And it was. And that's a good thing because much more harm could have been done to the country were it not for that. Barack Obama, he also was bothered that there was a Rush Limbaugh who was very effective. All these guys. And you know what? Even the Republicans. You know what? When George W. Bush wanted to have amnesty, Rush Limbaugh was at the head of the pack pushing back. But then when Marco Rubio wanted amnesty, Rush Limbaugh was at the head of the pack pimping his program, which was the same amnesty. So he wasn't perfect. There were things he was wrong about. He supported, for example, the Dubai, the country of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, taking over the management of our United States port cities, our ports. Our ports. I mean, our stuff is coming in. You could smuggle in weapons that way. People try to do that. And we would want countries that help sponsor the 9/11 hijackers to do that? No, we would not. But he supported that. And we had an argument online about that in emails. He said the reason he supported it was the Democrats were against it and the unions. Is that a good reason? No. But there were some of those instances. Again, none of us is perfect. None of us is 100%. None of us. But he did so much for America. He raised countless millions for the fallen, our soldiers, our armed forces. Countless. He also raised a lot of money for the men and women in blue. He spoke out against the violence on the streets of America. This guy was a great American and a patriot. But everything he did was always controversial, even though most of the things he said were common sense. So he had something called the 35 Undeniable Truths, and this was my favorite one. That feminist was invented so that unattractive women could have access to society and be promoted and be successful in it. And he's absolutely right. Feminism was for ugly women. He also used to call these feminist activists, particularly the pro-abortion ones, feminazis. And that word, I don't think he invented it. I had heard it before, but he was the one that made it popular and into the American lexicon. Now, others tried to make a career off of making fun of him and attacking him, and what happened to them? Al Franken wrote a book, Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot. It was a bestseller. But look where Al Franken is now. He's in obscurity. Yes, he was a U.S. Senator, but he had to resign in disgrace because he took advantage of a woman while they were in Iraq while she was sleeping, and he took photos of himself pretending to touch her breasts, and he tried to kiss her. He did kiss her. All kinds of stuff. So he's in obscurity right now. He will not be remembered with so many people talking about him. And he will never have as much influence on America and American history as Rush Limbaugh did. As I said, Donald Trump would never have been president but for Rush Limbaugh. Never. Rush Limbaugh made a lot of people. He really was more of a kingmaker than people realize. Now, when he was at ESPN, there was a controversy that a lot of people are bringing out again today. And it shouldn't have been controversial because he was absolutely right. So he was talking about Donovan McNabb, who at the time was an NFL quarterback. And Donovan McNabb wasn't a great quarterback. He was lackluster, but he was one of the first black NFL quarterbacks. In fact, I think he was the first starting NFL quarterback who was black. And Rush Limbaugh said on ESPN that the media is very desirous of him to do well because he's black. And Rush was absolutely right. It was big time affirmative action. They were praising Donovan McNabb for every paper cut he got on the field. He wasn't a great quarterback, and the figures and statistics after his career bore that out. He's just not a good quarterback in the annals of quarterback history in the NFL. But Rush Limbaugh was fired from ESPN because of that. There was an NFL team group that was going to buy an NFL team, and Rush Limbaugh was told to be, it was rumored or reported that he was part of that group, a very small owner, I think 2 or 5%. Because of that, he got kicked out of the group, and the group did not get the NFL team. Why? Because he was conservative. But you know what? All of those people trying to cancel him out failed. And you can see it in the evidence today with everybody remembering him. And I shall mostly remember him fondly. If I can dig up my pictures with him when we met up, maybe I'll share some more personal stories, but you pretty much got the gist of it. We talked a lot. He asked my advice on a lot of things. He took it more often than not. And like I said, sometimes I became his unwitting ghostwriter against my wishes and did not get credit for my work. But other times I did. He read some of my stuff on the air and gave me credit some of the time. He put my website as one of his top 10 websites that he used to read every day. And I shall remember him fondly as a great American, a great patriot. And again, we're all better off that he existed. Rush Limbaugh, rest in peace. All right, when we come back, we will talk more about some of the residuals of conservative media that he left, and also about these rolling blackouts in North Dakota and how it's related to Texas. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So, before the break, we were talking about the death of Rush Limbaugh and what he did for radio. And I think one of the things that it will die soon along with him is AM radio and just radio in general. People don't listen to radio that much anymore. And when they do, they're in the older demographics. Younger people are not listening to radio. Younger people are streaming, they're listening to satellite radio, they're listening to online music. They're just not listening to those things. So Rush Limbaugh had an audience, they say, of over 20 million people every day. Some people have poked holes in that number, and I'm sure it has shrank because his number of stations have shrunk. Sorry, I do have good grammar sometimes. And the numbers are lower for everybody because fewer and fewer people are listening not only to terrestrial radio, but also to TV. And at one time, Rush Limbaugh did have a TV show, which, when it was allowed to be in a decent time slot, did very well. But what happened was a lot of TV stations that were forced to carry it, they put it in very late night spots so nobody would watch, making it destined to failure. And I should tell you that one time Rush Limbaugh did intercede for me with Roger Ailes, who was then the CEO of Fox News. So Rush did do some things for me. And Roger Ailes in previous years was Rush Limbaugh's producer of his TV show. Now, one of the things I noted was that Rush would never allow his show to be on Sirius XM, whereas all the other conservative radio hosts who are big names are on Sirius XM. I think that's smart on their part. I think he didn't do it because he didn't feel he had to. He wasn't like them where he had to chase the technology. He had enough of a base and an audience. But yes, he revived radio. I don't think he's enough to save it. And not only is AM radio dying, TV is dying, fewer people are watching anything. But when they do watch, listen to this. And this is something why a Rush Limbaugh there will never be somebody that could command that many listeners anymore. There are too many entertainment choices. And I think this new system is really going to drive people away. And this is what it is. Nielsen. So Nielsen tracks ratings. They track ratings for this show. So you got to watch so that I don't get low ratings. But Nielsen tracks ratings. Now they're going to have a diversity tracker. So it doesn't matter anymore, apparently, how many eyeballs are watching so advertisers can reach more people. No. It matters what their internal plumbing is and what kind of genitals they have and whether they've snipped them off or had them restructured as a trans or whether they're a woman and have female genitals. Oops, I'm sorry. I can't say that, right? Because women don't have to have female genitals anymore under political correctness. But also they're going to go by skin color and ethnicity. So Nielsen is going to have this tracker, and I want to read you from this. So Nielsen announced today it's partnering with entertainment metadata tracker Gracenote. I never heard of Gracenote. To record visibility into the gender, race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation of talent appearing in TV programming and the audiences watching it. So basically, there are not going to be any good shows anymore because they're not going to be realistic. If you want to do a show about rural North Dakota, there are not a lot of black people. North Dakota has 3.2% black population, and most of them live in urban areas or the more populated bigger cities like Bismarck and Fargo. They are not going to be farmers, but if you want to do a show about farmers out in the country, you're not going to be able to do it because your audience is probably not going to be diverse enough and your actors aren't going to be diverse. Or you're going to have to do a show about World War II, and I guess you're going to have black and gay Nazis too, right? Because we all know that the Nazis were very diverse. And yes, it's true that our allies, our fighting soldiers were diverse, but guess what? They were segregated. You can't do a segregated show anymore either. You just can't do realistic shows. You can't do shows about the founders anymore because they're old dead white men, and some of them were slave owners, and that's not going to appeal to the right audience. And plus, we're not going to have a black George Washington. I know they made Alexander Hamilton black when he wasn't, but as long as they don't make George Washington and Thomas Jefferson black, you can't do that show. That's what this is going to turn into. And we already talked about that on this show months ago when the Academy Awards basically said that in order to be nominated, you have to meet these diversity metrics. It's absurd. It's going to make fewer people watch these shows. So the Nielsen ratings are going to go even farther down. And it's just dumb. If you judge shows by that, you're not going to get advertisers. Advertisers want eyeballs. They don't care about the color. They want eyeballs. Yes, there are some advertisers that have niche products. They do care. Most do not. And those things can already be tracked. All right? So there's that. So it's not only going to be the death of AM radio and radio in general now that Rush is gone, but it's going to be the death of TV, not having to do with Rush, but the very political correctness that he abhorred and condemned, rightfully so, on his show, and that we condemn on this show. It should be about merit and the open, free market. That's it. The marketplace of ideas in capitalism. Whoever gets the most money and the most eyeballs wins. Shouldn't be about what their color is. You know what? Isn't that what Martin Luther King Jr. said, that he dreamed of the day when his grandchildren were judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin? That seems to be the only thing we're doing today, is judging people by the content, by the color of their skin. Oh, and also by who they want to sleep with. Oh, and what body parts they want to transform into other ones artificially. Now, there's that. On a different topic, there's North Dakota. North Dakota, we talked about this on the show yesterday, is freezing right now. A lot of people have lost power. There are rolling blackouts all over the state, and people are freezing. And you know what? For the most part, it has nothing to do with North Dakota and everything to do with the reliance in Texas on alternative energy sources. And Governor Kristi Noem had something to say about that, and I think she's on target. So after the break, we will show you what she had to say, and we'll talk about how Texas did this to us in North Dakota. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Howdy folks, it's a Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications. If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie. Now, before the break, we started to talk about what's going on in North Dakota with the cold weather and the power outages. And as we said on yesterday's show, when you have states like Texas that invest half of their energy, they put half their eggs into the wind turbine basket, you're making a mistake. We have wind turbines here in North Dakota. They've advertised on this show. And I support that because, as I've said on yesterday's show, I want all the choices for power possible. We should have lots of choices. That brings the price down for everybody. And you don't have to rely on just one thing. But when you put half of your eggs in a basket of an energy source that hasn't been tested over time in extreme temperatures, low temperatures like this, you've made a mistake. And that's what happened in Texas when 50% of their wind turbines froze. So now they don't have enough energy. And they have to rely on fossil fuel energy and original traditional energy sources like gas and electricity and so on. And you know what happens when you do that? When you've already bet half the bank on the other source that froze? Well, you don't have enough. And prices go sky high. And there are rolling blackouts. Now, yesterday I said that I believed that North Dakota was freezing and there were power outages because I believed that even though we weren't in the same grid, on the same grid as Texas, that it's all connected. And I was actually wrong. We are on the same power source as Texas for some of it. So what is the Southwest Power Pool? I'll tell you. We are on the Southwest Power Pool. We're not in the Southwest, but we are connected to that. And that is what Texas is connected to. So because there isn't enough energy to go around for everyone, they're doing rolling blackouts, not only throughout Texas, but in other states, including North Dakota, because there isn't enough energy to go around for everybody to have it 24/7. That's what happens. And now we're living in the former Soviet Union, when it was the Soviet Union, and people were in bread lines and there wasn't any bread. Now we're in energy lines. There isn't enough energy. And Governor Kristi Noem had something interesting to say. Take a look at this video.
So these blackouts that we're seeing, they're reminiscent of what we saw in the former Soviet Union, in Cuba, in California last summer. Is this what we can expect in a, Joe Biden America that's pushing all these green energy policies?
Well, listen, I've always been a supporter of diversified energy. I think it's critically important that we prioritize all forms of energy. Biden has specifically gone after coal and oil and gas, and I think that's dangerous. We should be supporting energy that's generated here in the United States, so we rely on our own sources, but also we don't put all of our eggs in one basket. We make sure it is diversified so we don't have the situation that we've got today in so many different states. You know, I'm a supporter of wind energy, but it's not consistent, and that's why you're always going to need other forms of electricity to support the system and the grid so that families can make sure they can keep their houses warm.
Absolutely. So tell me really quickly, because I know that you know we're in the middle of this pandemic. The Keystone Pipeline is one of the first things that Joe Biden got rid of. So how is it affecting your state, and why the heck would he do that in the middle of a pandemic when we don't really have replacement jobs?
Well, it was interesting because the pipeline was being built through the state of South Dakota. In fact, they had already built a couple of pumping stations. They had the pipeline laid out, ready to be installed. And then when he pulled the permits, everything just stopped. There were so many families that have told their stories in recent days about the devastation to them and their incomes and their businesses. We had restaurants and motels and gas stations that had expanded, getting ready for the workers that were going to be here for the next several years building the pipeline. They were excited about the opportunities to get the property taxes in these local small schools from the pipeline. It was always going to be a source of revenue that would help them keep their roads fixed, keep commerce going, and make sure that their teachers could be well paid in a lot of these remote areas where economic development is a little challenging. So in overnight, their whole plan for the future was just gone. And I think for a lot of families in the state of South Dakota, it was devastating. For me in particular, I see all sides of it as well. It was a critical piece of infrastructure that gave us energy in this country and made sure that we were going to be able to deliver it efficiently and safely and protect the environment. Listen, this pipeline was safer for the environment than how we're moving this oil today. It was safer for people than how we're moving it today by rail and by truck line, and it was going to bring down the cost of gas and oil in this country, which is so important to those hardworking families that try to pay their bills every month.
Absolutely right. So she's talking about the Keystone XL pipeline, but the same thing can happen in North Dakota with the Dakota Access Pipeline. We told you the other day, all the celebrities that are pressuring Joe Biden to shut that down as well. And that could happen. Don't fool yourself. That could happen. And she's absolutely right. How do you think they're going to transport the oil, the gas? How do you think they're going to do that if there's no pipeline? They're going to do it on trains. And you know what? Trains pollute. You ever seen the smoke coming out of a train? Trains use fuel. You know what else trains do? They tip over and they have spills. And there are explosions and fires. They pollute. And they're a safety hazard. The pipeline is much safer. It's much cheaper. And you know what? When things are transported by rail or even in vehicles, guess what? You have to pay more because there are higher costs to transport it. It's more hazardous. That costs more as well to take the precautions. The insurance is higher, and so on. So the prices are going to go whoop, like I told you. It's going to be a disaster. And she absolutely said what I've been saying on this show, which is this, and what I said yesterday, and I've said again today, which is you can't put all your energy eggs in one basket, or even half of them like Texas did. You have to have all the sources, bring the price down, but diversify. You know, just like they tell you to do with your investments and retirement in not just the stock market, but everywhere else. Diversify your stocks, but also diversify your investments. Don't put them all in one stock and don't put them all in the stock market. Diversify. That's what you do. Everything in moderation. That's a good lesson for life. So, you know, the left is always telling us diversity, diversity. They only want diversity where it doesn't count and it doesn't do anything. This is diversity with a difference, and we see what happens when you don't have it. You've got the people of Texas freezing, and now, because of them, the people of North Dakota are freezing and paying the price, and we don't want that. Now, I got to show you this headline from the New York Times. Check this out. Look at this headline. Texas blackouts hit minority neighborhoods especially hard. Yes, isn't it always minorities hardest hit? Insert crisis here. Minorities hardest hit. That's what they always do. Always, it's minorities hardest hit. That's the New York Times for you. But it's not just the New York Times. I want to show you this tweet because somebody else is hardest hit or something else. Turtles hardest hit. My mom is retired. She spends her winters volunteering at a sea turtle rescue center in South Texas. The cold snap is stunning the local turtles. They're doing a lot of rescues. She sent me this photo today of the back of her Subaru. It's literally, they call that car a Lesbaru in some communities, just saying. It's literally turtles all the way down. Yeah, turtles hardest hit. Who cares about the people? It's the sea turtles we got to worry about, the sea turtles. Isn't that always the way? All right, when we come back, we'll talk some White House COVID policy and how absurd it is and how it just doesn't jibe with the facts. And even the liberal media is picking up on it. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather, like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So there are other things going on in the news today, and one of them is that COVID continues and the COVID theater with masks and lockdowns and all of this baloney that doesn't work continues. So first, I want to show you a graph that we have of Florida versus Texas. Florida, as we know, had very little lockdown at the beginning, didn't have one most of the time, had no mask mandate. So look at, this is Florida versus Texas. They're almost identical, except that Texas was the one that had mask mandates, had lockdowns, had really strict conditions that people had to live under. Their businesses were ruined. For what? They had the same occurrences, only worse than Florida. The lines almost match, except Texas is worse. Look at that. Those are daily new deaths per 1 million. So we're not the only ones noticing this. Now, even the liberal media is noticing this. And I want to show you a video of CNBC's, I believe this is CNBC or MSNBC's, Stephanie Ruhle. She used to be a business reporter. I think she may still be. And she is questioning one of the White House COVID officials. Watch this.
Past states like Florida and California, California basically in lockdown, and their numbers aren't that different from Florida.
Well, good morning, Stephanie. Look, there's so much of this virus that we think we understand, that we think we can predict, that's just a little bit beyond our explanation. What we do know is that the more careful people are, the more they mask and social distance, and the quicker we vaccinate, the quicker it goes away and the less it spreads. But we have got to get better visibility into variants. We don't know what role they play, large events, etc. But, this is, as we all have learned by this time, this is a virus that continues to surprise us. It's very hard to predict. And, all around the country, we've got to continue to do a better job. And I think we are, but we're not done yet.
But what does that look like? Because people are fatigued by this.
What kind of answer was that? In fact, it was a non-answer. He did not answer the question because we showed you the graph, and we've been showing you graphs just like that since the beginning of this show, and at least for the last several months, since many states had more strict lockdowns and mask mandates, and then many other states with smart Republican governors, not Governor Burgum, had no mask mandates and ended their lockdowns a long time ago, and did not have these 80% of capacity rules or 25% and 20% in some cases. Those governors had the same results as everybody else, except better. Kristi Noem, who you just saw on the video in the previous segment, she is an example. They had nothing. She never had a lockdown. She never had a mask mandate. She had better numbers than we did here in North Dakota. But the lines were basically parallel. It was like this. And North Dakota was like this. And you know what? North Dakota was higher like this. South Dakota was lower like this. And they had nothing. And we killed businesses. Governor Burgum serial killed businesses and jobs. For what? And this guy at the White House has no answer because there isn't one. This is theater. It's not working. All right. And related to all this COVID hysteria that still continues to date, today's Ash Wednesday, or at least it used to be. And instead of, by the way, I'm a proud Jew. I'm Jewish. I'm not Catholic, but I respect religious traditions and I respect those who believe in and practice their faith, unless their faith involves violent jihad against others or imposing their religious observances and views upon others. Catholicism does not. Catholicism today, if you were a Catholic and you were religious, you go to church and the priest puts the sign of the cross on your forehead in ash, right? At least that used to be the way it was. Yesterday was Fat Tuesday, today's Ash Wednesday. Well, guess what? It's no longer just Ash Wednesday, it's Sprinkle Ash Wednesday. So you no longer get the ash on your forehead. Now you get the ash sprinkled on you like confetti, and it gets in your eyes and all over. Now, I have a question. If you're going to be close enough to sprinkle ash on somebody, why can't you just put it on their forehead? If you're wearing gloves, you have your mask or your double mask, as they're now saying we should do. Are you really going to get COVID any more, or are your chances any worse than if you sprinkle them on the person? Please. This is absurd. It's unnecessary hysteria. It's theater. Theater. Like when you used to go to the airport and they would ask you, when was the last time a terrorist packed your bags? Or have you left your luggage in the custody of a Muslim terrorist in the last 2 weeks prior to booking this flight? Those were the kinds of questions. Yeah, I know it wasn't exactly like that. That's basically what they were asking you, and nobody, unless you're incredibly stupid and you have an IQ that's on the ground here, nobody said the wrong answers. The questions were dumb, and this sprinkle ash stuff is equally as dumb. All right, now, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, was asked about what Joe Biden is doing for small businesses. And here is her answer.
What is President Biden doing for my small business? First and foremost, he nominated a woman to lead the Small Business Administration.
He nominated a woman to head the Small Business Administration. That is her answer for what Joe Biden is doing for your small business. So if you're watching this show and you got a small business somewhere in suburban Bismarck or somewhere in suburban Fargo or somewhere out, farther out like Jamestown or Dickinson or somewhere else, your small business is suffering. Does it really matter to you? Does it help your business an iota of an iota that Joe Biden nominated a woman to head the Small Business Administration? Is her internal biology and her outward plumbing and genitals, is that going to help make your business suffer less? I mean, I'm just going to take a wild guess, and I'm going to say that probably the answer is no. Am I right about that? Let us know how your small business is doing now that a woman is the head of Joe Biden's Small Business Administration. Let us know if it's made any difference to you on our social media or any of our pages. I bet we won't get any responses that say it's made any difference whatsoever, but this is what they're about. It's just like those Nielsen ratings that are now going to be based on diversity. You know what? Diversity doesn't put money in the bank. It doesn't feed your children. It doesn't put a roof over your head. It doesn't heat your home, especially in this rolling power outage business that we've got. Diversity and wind turbines don't do that for you. I'm just saying. You don't have to be an idiot to know that. And remember, things are not always as they seem. See you tomorrow.